Well, good morning and welcome to A Taste for the Road, and welcome to the 2018 Scrambler, Ducati 1100 Special. So this is a new model for 2018 that expands the Ducati, or specifically the Scrambler range, out from its 800cc introduction now out to 1100 cc's, or really 1079 to be precise. And so I thought it would be a great opportunity to go ahead and take it out for a spin. We're here in the historic district of Winchester, Virginia. I just picked it up from Ducati Winchester, so thank you to folks at DucPond Motorsports. And we're now going to go ahead and start and head over to Hopscotch Coffee and Records. The human needs a little bit of fuel before we head out and test this bike, enjoy it, see what it has to offer, and then go from there. So let's head on over to Hopscotch, have a bit of caffeine, and go on from there. Well, that was an enjoyable stop at Hopscotch. I had a cappuccino and one of their macaroon cookies, which was tender on the inside and a little crunchy on the outside, which is the way I like my macaroons. What's also cool inside is the music, some of which is available for sale. Not all of it, but there are plenty of vintage vinyl pieces if you're interested that certainly took me back. They've got quite a range too, from blues and jazz to rock stuff from the 80s and so forth. Coffee's awfully good. You guys should check it out. There'll be, of course, a traditional written review of it as well when this video or little film goes ahead and drops. So what I think we're going to go ahead and do next is head on out south and west, and probably also east of Winchester here. Go ahead and get a feel for the bike and give you some initial impressions, then do some more riding, and then go ahead and finish it out once I feel I've been able to really explore and figure out what this bike is about. I actually have it for 24 hours total. Ducati Winchester was kind enough to give it to me for that period of time, and my goal is to go ahead and put maybe 200 or so miles on it and really get a feel for what it has to offer. So let's head and due west a little bit, hit some nice back roads, and show those to you and check this bike out. So I've had a chance to put some mileage on this bike, begin to get a feel for what it has to offer and some of its best attributes. I would say, for starters, that the rider position, or the rider triangle, is really very comfortable. For those of you who don't ride, it's the handlebars to my hips, or where I'm seated, down to where the foot pegs are. Some are very extreme, some bikes. This is most definitely not one of those. It's a very comfortable standard ride. Ever so slightly am I canted forward, not quite as much as on my Monster, but there is a little bit of that, so it helps keep pressure off the lower back, which is really quite nice. Also, the pressure on the wrists is almost non-existent, so you can really get or obtain a comfortable position with respect to hands and so forth. The seat is really very comfortable. I was initially concerned a little bit that because it's wide, I'm not the tallest guy in the world, my inseam a little under 30 inches, that I wouldn't be able to get my feet down quite as well, or on uneven pavement or gravel or whatnot. But that's proven not to be the case. It's actually really quite nice. And I think if you're thinking that you want to go ahead and put someone on the back, a pillion, they would be very comfortable. The seat is wide and nicely padded. There's certainly no complaints there. Mirrors, they remind me of being basically, I'm sure, essentially identical to my Monster. They've got, you know, good visibility. They're out a little bit, but not too much. And from a practical standpoint, for being able to see in another lane, or as I position one of these towards my behind me, my rear, so I can see who's behind me. That also works really, really nicely too. The engine's sweet. We're gonna have to talk about that more after I've ridden some more and been able to get better impressions, but it's very, very nice. Ditto some of the switchgear and so forth, and by that I mean the clutch lever is really very, very light, much lighter than mine, and definitely a 2-finger affair. For some of you with longer fingers, it'll probably end up being a 1-finger affair. Throttle is gentle in a variety of different modes. I have tried active, journey, and city, and but all of them have some very clear distinctions among them in terms of throttle response and other characteristics that you would expect. The tires have to be noted here as well too. These Pirelli MT60s are actually really very, very nice. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and ride some more, in fact quite a bit more, and come back to you with some final impressions and what I think both about the bike and about its individual attributes, some of which are outstanding, I think, or will be by the time I'm done, and somewhere, you know, there's always opportunity for improvement. So let's go ahead and see what these back roads have to offer outside of Winchester. I've had a chance to now put quite a bit of mileage on this bike, almost 200 miles, not quite. By the time I get back to the dealership, it'll be a little bit over 200. So I thought I would go ahead and kind of summarize and talk about what I think this bike has to offer that's unique and special, and obviously areas for improvement. So I think in terms of, in part because I've been staring at it for the last 24 hours, one area for improvement is this. I realize that for those of you out there of a certain age who grew up with BMX pedal bikes during the 1990s, this probably is a bit of an homage to your youth. But the reality is, it's not the most attractive in the world. And I really wish, given that Ducati intentionally put it there, help create a certain appeal with this bike, that they took a little bit of extra energy and had me stare at something other than just simply black plastic with Department of Transportation numbers and other metrics on it. Whether they made it stainless steel or whether they decided to create or paint it in the Italian flag or do something with it, it's just simply not the most attractive in the world, and something that if I were to purchase one of these, I would absolutely have to change. I think number two in the criticism, and more substantial from both a functional standpoint, would be this system, or this LCD dash. There's a lot of information on it. It is sometimes difficult to try and piece out what that is beyond the speed, and of course beyond what gear that I happen to be in, and I do appreciate knowing what gear selection I've got. But it would be really nice if it was a bit more legible. I realize the style is critical in this particular space, but to come up with something that was either LED or some sort of combination thereof would be really quite appreciated. Because again, it's just difficult sometimes to, at a glance, go ahead and know certain information that is really fairly important. I think also, while the suspension is very, very good, the rear suspension in particular is very, very nice, both under hard acceleration as well as handling low speed and high speed bumps and so forth. The fronts, while also good for high and low speed damping, I did find went ahead and dropped a little bit when I would go ahead and brake a bit hard. It's nosedives, excuse me, a little bit. I think probably a couple of clicks on the preload would be something that could essentially help improve it a lot. But I always like to leave a bike as is, just to test it as it was delivered from the factory, or at least as the dealership sets it up. I think it gives you a fair impression of what the bike has to offer and what it's going to do for you. I think also for me, in thinking about not just this bike, but the space around the retro market and around scramblers, one of two challenges that I think exists is that it's designed to appeal to millennials, and certainly Ducati has heavily marketed this Scrambler series to that demographic. And certainly when I was at Hopscotch, there were several guys in front of me waiting for coffee patiently. The place is popular, and there's a university right next door, and hence it's popular also with students and whatnot, who looked through the window very longingly at this bike, and then saw me in leathers and struck up a conversation. And it was a reflection of reality, which is that for many millennial households, financial stability and strength is an issue. And this is an expensive motorcycle. They start at $13,000. This is at $14,300. The Sport with the Olin suspension is at a full $15,000 before any taxes, tags, and trinkets that you add on to it. And I think, despite an understandable desire by those in their late 20s and into their 30s and so forth for this bike, who've had a little bit of experience under their belt, either with an original 800 Scrambler from when that was introduced 3 years ago, or some other bike, some other make, and then coming over to this more powerful, more adult version of the Scrambler, that it's really one of affordability. And then the other challenge, I think, around this space and around a bike like this, and the Scrambler in particular, is that not all of the folks who bought the original 800 Scrambler back when it was introduced or made available in 2015 and early on sold very, very well, weren't just millennials. They were folks in their mid to late 40s, throughout their 50s, and even into their 60s, and chose the bike because it reminded them of their dirt bike days, the 70s and 80s, when, again, you simply didn't have quite the same level of dedicated machinery that you do now. And it really was. It's a bit of an homage to what was, youthful and just exciting and fun and just not too serious. The price point of the 800 was, a good one, and so folks were going to go ahead and, pick one up and then just take it out and really just enjoy it, remind themselves of what it was like to be, 17 or 18 or whatnot. And are those folks going to go ahead and upgrade 3 or 4 years later to a new Scrambler, one that is bigger, that is more, if you will, powerful, obviously, more complete, but also more adult? This definitely feels like a bike that is very substantial and robust, and while very playful in many ways and whatnot, it's not quite the same experience as the 800. And I do wonder whether folks will go ahead and really feel the need or a real desire to say, hey, the 1100's available now. I just have to go out and get one. For me, this bike really has, the Scrambler 1100, 4 areas that are really quite outstanding. Number one really has to be the engine. It's absolutely fantastic. It was very good in the Monster 1100 Evo back in 2012, and they've really done a lot of additional work. You can just feel it. No, it doesn't have 100 horsepower, but frankly, it doesn't need it. And I think if the bike did have 100 horsepower, it simply wouldn't be any better than it is right now, and it's a very good motorcycle. The real story here is around torque, which is 65 pounds at 4750, and that real wonderful torque curve starts at around 4K, continues through its peak to about 6,500, and it's just a wonderful space to be in as you're tooling down the roads or in the back ways outside of Winchester as I am today, or wherever you may be. Horsepower is something that you experience, but torque is something that you feel, and this is a bike that is all about how you feel. And I think it was enormously savvy of the Ducati engineers and the team that put this together to focus around the torque of this motor and to focus around the emotionality, which is what this thing is all about. How it makes you feel, style, etc. And this space really is a challenging one that has a lot of competition, and I think in this area they've really just done an outstanding job. Number 2, which correlates with the engine, is really just the chassis. It is a wonderfully benign chassis. By way of example, I was heading home last night. I was in the middle of rush hour traffic. I was going through a roundabout and somebody decided to let me through, which was really surprising and frankly caught me off guard. I pulled out and then waved to somebody, and then halfway through the corner realized, wait a minute, I was in first gear, traveling at maybe 5 miles an hour, pulling away at the throttle a little bit. I was waving to someone in the other lane to thank them. And it could not have been more balanced and more neutral. The tires obviously are playing their role too, which they are very sticky, these Pirelli MT60s. And just the whole package, whether it is the suspension, front and rear, it's the chassis, which is enormously stable at speed, as I am, here right now. And it's just a wonderful setup that they've established. I think number 3 is going to be the electronics. The fact that it has an IMU in this space and at this price point, as it should, is unusual. I'm sure that will change quickly, but the reality is that it is unique. And then, of course, number 4 is going to be the bling. This isn't too blingy outside the exhaust system, which is a little bit too shiny for my liking, but I can understand why some people will like it. But just the fit and the finishes, the paint on this tank, the aluminum pieces everywhere, etc. They've done just a really, really nice job. It's a classy looking piece of kit. And it's true of the base model, it's true of the Sport as well, with its black and yellow paint scheme. It's just a very nice looking motorcycle. As the gentleman who I was talking to, or I was talking to, excuse me, at Hopscotch, longingly looking at it and thinking, wow, that's a really nice bike. And the answer is, yes, it is. It looks great. In sum, this has really been a very satisfying motorcycle to ride over the last 24 hours at 200 miles or so. And I think it really works in the real world for a lot of different riders, whether it's someone who is interested in upgrading after having started a few years ago, or someone who's returning to the sport, someone like myself who's basically been riding for almost 2 decades. And whether it is in commuter traffic or whether it's out here on some, really lovely back roads on a beautiful, very late October day, it really does work remarkably well in actual real-world riding conditions. And I don't think that the criticism that has been leveled against this bike since its introduction late last year and available for sale in the spring, that it has not a sufficient amount of horsepower, is really just absolute nonsense. The story is absolutely around the torque and should be celebrated for that. And whether, again, you're someone who is mostly in town riding, this thing is an absolute doodle in rush hour traffic, and was actually pleasurable, genuinely pleasurable to ride while I was in the middle of getting my way home, and with lots of cars and trucks all the way around me. So I hope this video was informative and that you enjoyed it. Please give it a thumbs up if you can. Subscribe if you'd enjoy being alerted to new videos as they become available. There'll of course be a traditional written review of this bike and of Hopscotch Coffee and Records when this video goes live on atastefortheroad.com. Don't forget, and most importantly, please go out and create your own adventures. That's really important. Doesn't matter what it is. Try something new or see something in a new way. Go ahead and comment and share that experience with us in the comments below. And then I'd like to say finally a big thank you to Ducati Winchester and DucPond Motorsports and the team there for allowing me to have this bike for 24 hours. Give it a real test or a real-world review over a variety of conditions, and it's been a real pleasure. And if you are in the market for a new Ducati, or you're thinking about one, I would encourage you to take a very nice scenic trip out to Winchester. It's really not that far away, and there are lots of other things to do if you wish to bring someone else with you, and you now know that there's a lovely coffee place to check out their bikes and check out their shop. They really do a nice job. So with that, I think I will sign off, and I will see you in the next video. Ciao.